flashbang. What happened? Nick glue it back on. I'm aware. I'm not a huge fan of it either. Episode 69 of Otaku's Anonymous was filmed yesterday, and in episode 68, Danny had a mustache, and so we switched chairs, and I was cosplaying Danny, so I shaved the mustache, but I forgot the aspect of having a mustache is not having a beard, and there I was, sitting with a razor, with all of my beard gone and just the mustache left, which was, it was fine. It wasn't great, but believe it or not, Dorothy wasn't a huge fan of the lone, skinny mustache, so I shaved the mustache off, and now there's just nothing. And for the lot of you being like,
wow, I've never seen Nick without a beard.
Well, that's because you actually haven't. Last time I shaved my beard was 5 years ago when Dorothy was wondering whether or not I would look better with or without a beard, to which she very promptly got an answer. However, in the course of those last 5 years, I've gotten older and apparently my jawline's gotten more defined, so I actually don't hate this. It won't be around for long, but it will be around for at least the next 2 days. So I guess, soak it in while you can. Now that we got that out of the way, let's get to our actual video. For those of you who only check in on my page once a month, around this time of the month, you're probably wondering, Nick, where are those leaks at? Why aren't we covering Boruto's new chapter yet? To which I can only tell you, I don't know. To give you a little BTS, a little behind the scenes, Boruto's leaks usually come out on the 16th, but they can come out later than the 16th. Now, this would mean that Boruto's translated leaks usually come out about 4 days prior to the English release of the chapter. However, because of, I don't know, maybe Father's Day, leaks actually won't be coming out until today, right now. You're watching this video on the 18th, the leaks come out today. However, prior to the leaks coming out, there's always one panel leaked. And this is usually the most important or the most hype panel from the upcoming chapter. That and the cover gets leaked, but the cover doesn't really mean anything. And while usually the one page being leaked is close enough to the leaks of the actual chapter that I don't have to talk about just the page, or the page just isn't interesting enough to need its own video. But this week is a bit different. See, because not only are the leaks delayed, but also the page that we did get leaked is absolutely massive. But why? Well, because the one page that we did get leaked revealed to us exactly how Himawari's new tailed beast form is going to operate, or at least give us a small indicator of what her power is going to look like moving forward. And I'll tell you right now, even I didn't anticipate what I'm looking at. See, because while there was many theories about how Himawari was going to be able to manifest Kurama's powers, I don't think any of us had a nine-tailed, hair-tailed beast bomb on our list of possibilities. And yet, in the one page we have leaked thus far of Chapter 11, Himawari is seemingly firing a tailed beast ball and a perfectly mixed tailed beast ball at that at Jura. And while it may not sound all that important, this one piece of information tells us basically everything that we need to know about how Himawari's tailed beast powers are going to manifest in the future. And with this one piece of information, we can say almost unequivocally, if Himawari isn't already stronger than Naruto as a Jinchuriki, she soon will be. So while some people will say you can't learn anything from one page of manga, I would beg to differ, which is why today we're talking Himawari's future revealed. But before we get to revealing anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you love the idea of me breaking down your other favorite chapters in manga, go ahead and follow my other channel, The Weeb Commander, where instead of talking Naruto and Boruto, I talk all other anime and manga. And if you want to see me live, coming down to VidCon June 28th and June 29th. Me and the rest of the anime IRL boys, those being Stephen Heeg, Chris Barnett, and Danny Mata, are going to be filming a live video with the crowd in attendance at our panel June 29th, 10 a.m. And also doing a live release party for Anime IRL as a page, with a live meet and greet with all four of us right afterwards. Before we get into all that, today we got to talk about our favorite recurring sponsor to the page, BetterHelp. See, while I use all the products that I advertise on this page, there is no product that I value more highly in my heart than BetterHelp. See, while being a YouTuber is an incredible job, and I'm eternally grateful that I'm able to do it every single day, it does make me a man on an island. I'm my own boss, and definitely my own worst critic. And therefore, prior to BetterHelp, when views would take a dive, so would my emotions. However, from the counseling I received from BetterHelp, I was able to tie my self-worth to so much more than just my career. And all this came to be because I was able to find a therapist through BetterHelp that was right for me, who helped me create positive reinforcement strategies for myself. But how can you have that experience for yourself? Well, fortunately, BetterHelp makes it easy. See, BetterHelp's entire core mission is to make it easy to help find you a therapist that works for you, who can help you by giving you unbiased and professional advice. And this process is fast. I was matched with a therapist in under 48 hours, and that's usually how it goes videos for most customers. All you have to do is go to their website using the link found on screen right now, answer a short questionnaire based on what you're trying to get out of therapy, and BetterHelp should be able to match you with a therapist in under 48 hours. And the professional that you're matched to will have years of experience helping people like you going through problems like you're going through. And the only thing easier than connecting to a therapist on BetterHelp is connecting with your therapist on BetterHelp, as you can connect with your therapist through either video calls, phone calls, or even something as simple as messaging. BetterHelp wants to ensure that you're connecting with your therapist in whatever means makes you feel most comfortable. It's the easiest possible way to get connected to a therapist. So go to betterhelp.com/NCHammer or use code NCHammer at checkout to get a special discount off your first month. Getting a summer body includes working on your brain. So it appears as though Chapter 11 isn't going to shy away from Himawari and Jura's battle, which is good, because if we were going to do something like a backstory dump or a flashback or focus on Sarada or Hidari's battle, I would have been absolutely livid. See, because while I am excited to see Sarada and Hidari battle it out, Himawari versus Jura is much more important. And based off simply the 3 panels we've been given thus far, it appears as though Himawari is not only holding her own in this battle, but also possibly winning, which is wild when you consider the person who she's battling against, the personification of Jigen's will in the form of a 10 tails made human, aka pretty much the strongest thing we've seen yet in the Naruto universe. And yet Himawari is seen not only sending Jura backwards, but also lining up to have a tailed beast ball clash with it. But how? How is any of this possible? How is Himawari standing toe-to-toe with Jura? Well, that brings us back to the relatively age-old question, and by age-old, I mean like 2 or 3 months old, question of what is Himawari's new Kurama mode? And to this question, the community has found 3 answers, or 3 possible theories, I'll say. And those 3 theories were that either Himawari has some form of Barion mode that's more efficient, the form that she's currently manifesting is more akin to Naruto's first Kurama mode, or the outlier opinion, and one that I don't see talked about all that often, is that Himawari's new relationship with Kurama is actually more akin to what's going on with the Shinju than anything that's even happened with Naruto. And thus today we're going to be talking about all 3 of these possibilities and how the new revelation of Himawari being able to make a tailed beast bomb affects the possibility of every single one. Until eventually we're able to come to the conclusion that Himawari being able to make a perfect tailed beast ball means that one of these 3 possibilities is much more likely now than the other 2. So let's start off with a theory that Himawari being able to make a tailed beast ball is the worst form, and that is that the Kurama mode that Himawari is currently manifesting is more akin to Naruto's first Kurama mode than Barion mode. Now, for those of you wondering what Naruto's first Kurama mode is, it's the leaking out of Kurama's chakra that happened in Naruto's battle against Haku and Sasuke in the Valley of the End fight, the first one. Now, while technically these 2 events are different from each other, as in the battle against Sasuke, Naruto actually manifests a version 1 Jinchuriki cloak with 1 tail. Basically, what people were saying here is that Himawari's current mode that she's manifesting with Kurama exists somewhere between said Haku fight and the Valley of the End fight. And honestly, I could understand why people would come to this conclusion. See, some of the biggest characteristic changes that Naruto underwent in the earliest versions of his Kurama forms was the fact that his whiskers would become more pronounced and his nails would turn into claws, both of which are things that have happened to Himawari. Ties into the fact that Naruto also got a winged eye-lined look and Kurama's eyes would manifest in his own, that is to say that Naruto would get red, fox-like eyes. And thus, when you consider the cosmetic similarities between Himawari and Naruto in these 2 respective forms, and you consider the fact that this is Himawari awakening her first taste of Kurama's chakra, like Naruto did in the battle against Haku and kind of again in the Valley of the End, then from both a cosmetic and contextual standpoint, this would make the most sense for Himawari. However, there's one problem here. See, because while yes, Naruto and Himawari's face undergo similar cosmetic changes when manifesting these respective forms, the biggest difference between them is a rather big difference. And that is that Himawari's not leaking orange chakra, or any chakra for that matter. And there's only ever been 1 form that Naruto was able to use in conjunction with Kurama's chakra that didn't completely bathe him in Kurama's chakra, and that was Barion mode. And while yes, Naruto still had tails and a giant Kurama cloak in his Barion mode, the majority of his body, that being about 90% of it, wasn't covered in Kurama's chakra. But then, okay, why isn't Himawari leaking out chakra like Naruto did against Haku? Well, efficiency. What do I mean? Well, Kurama's already established the fact to Himawari that she's much more compatible with his chakra than even Naruto was. Thus, the ongoing theory in the Boruto community is that the reason that Kurama's chakra would leak out of Naruto is because he wasn't 100% efficient with Kurama's chakra. And we know that chakra efficiency is a massive thing in the Naruto universe, as a massive deal has been made about the fact that both Sasuke and Sakura have such good chakra control that they use only the requisite amount of chakra to pull off any jutsu. That is to say that when they fire off a ninjutsu, it only uses as much much chakra as absolutely necessary. However, the same was never said about Naruto. Naruto's chakra reserves were so incredibly massive that he would dump massive amounts of chakra into all of his jutsus because he didn't have to worry about running out. This is all canon and told to us material, and thus to assume that Naruto, who had half or the entirety of Kurama for almost his entire life, never really had to worry about running out of Kurama's chakra, and therefore used Kurama's chakra inefficiently, makes a fair amount of sense. But then Nick, you've just addressed the one cosmetic difference between Himawari's first Kurama mode and Naruto's. So how is this one page of Himawari using a tailed beast ball terrible for that possible theory? Well, because there's no physical way that Naruto could have made a tailed beast ball in this first form, efficient or not. See, but the strongest thing that Naruto is able to do when unlocking this form against Haku is yell really loud and break some ice mirrors, which was impressive because arguably even Sasuke's Sharingan-assisted fireball jutsu couldn't do that. But it's important to remember that Naruto couldn't master a tailed beast ball until he learned KCM 1. And in actuality, in KCM 1, he couldn't even master the tailed beast ball, because in KCM 1, Naruto could barely figure out the 8:2 positive to negative chakra ratio, and therefore in KCM 1, Naruto could really only use the mini tailed beast ball Rasengan. And even that, in KCM 1, was noticeably heavy to Naruto. And thus to assume that if Naruto, in the form he used against Haku, was just more efficient, he'd be able to pull off a tailed beast ball of the size that Himawari is currently pulling off is insane. On top of that, assume that Himawari is awakening a form similar to that Naruto used in the battle against Haku, completely ignores all of the context we got from Naruto about how he made his Kurama modes better, which was equal parts hard work and cooperation from Kurama. And while Himawari hasn't necessarily crushed that hard work part, I mean, she's been training, just not with Kurama, she, from the jump, has the entirety of Kurama's cooperation, which isn't something that Naruto had until he unlocked KCM 2, which would mean, if anything, Himawari's current form should be more akin to KCM 2 than the form that Naruto used against Haku. But unfortunately, Himawari looks nothing like KCM 2 Naruto, whose whiskers became solid black lines, whose eyes turned a shade of orange, and who now, more than ever, was bathed in Kurama's chakra. However, ironically, there was a form in which Naruto looked a lot more like Himawari than he did in KCM 2 that was also, ironically, a KCM 2 form. And that was Naruto's Sage of Six Paths form. See, for those of you who don't remember, KCM 2 and KCM 2 plus Sage mode have Naruto's skin and everything bathed in Kurama's chakra. However, after Naruto was given the Sun Seal and the Sage of Six Paths chakra by Hagoromo, while his clothes, hair, and headband all remained bathed in Kurama's chakra, Naruto's skin, for the first time, wasn't, which was interesting because technically this should have been his strongest form, and yet technically in this form he's bathed in less of Kurama's chakra. Now, what's so infinitely interesting about this is that the main reason that everybody believes that Himawari and Boruto are so incredibly special is because both Naruto and Hinata received chakra from Hagoromo and Hamaru respectively. And when you consider the relationship that Hagoromo had with the tailed beasts in that he was their creator, it would make sense that when Naruto was using Sage of Six Paths chakra, he would have better control of it. And thus the cosmetic change between KCM 2 plus Sage mode and Sage of Six Paths mode being less chakra, more specifically less chakra on his skin, could speak to the fact that the best way to become efficient in your use of tailed beast chakra is to have the chakra of either the Sage of Six Paths or his brother. When you consider the fact that Himawari has both of those things, this could be a scenario in which Sage of Six Paths Naruto at the end of the Fourth Great Shinobi World War was supposed to show us what half efficiency with Kurama's chakra would look like, while Himawari, who has the second piece of the puzzle, Hamura's chakra, shows us what full efficiency looks like. And while this theory would possibly help build out the idea that this is Himawari's first Kurama mode and she's only going to get more and more Kurama modes from here on out, I'd once again like to reiterate that I don't think any level of efficiency would have gotten Naruto in his battle against Haku to tailed beast ball levels, which is why I want to talk about the second possibility. And that theory is that the form that Himawari is currently manifesting is some iteration of Barion mode, though made more efficient. But Nick, haven't you been saying this is the highest likelihood possibility for a month or so now? Yeah, I have, but there's now been very clear material changes. See, in terms of cosmetics, technically, Barion mode is the closest to what Himawari is currently undergoing. As in Barion mode, Naruto's eyes were once again just red slits, no Sage mode cross added to them, and while his fingers didn't have claw-like protrusions like Himawari currently has, the whiskers on his face did get bolder and sharper, but only in one direction, as they also got longer and appeared to stretch all the way to the back of his face, and Himawari's whiskers have undergone the same transformation. Tie that into the fact that outside of stages 6 past Naruto, this is the only Kurama form that Naruto has that doesn't bathe his skin in Kurama's chakra. And yeah, I believed, and still kind of do, that this is some iteration of Barion mode used on Himawari, though sustainable. Well then, okay, Nick, why is it your middle tier answer after the revelations of chapter 11? The usage of the tailed beast ball. See, in the exact opposite vein of how I said I don't believe that Naruto using his Haku fight form could create a tailed beast ball, Barion mode Naruto could absolutely create and control a tailed beast ball. It's Naruto and Kurama's strongest ever form. They could 1000% create a tailed beast ball the size of a moon and throw it at whoever they wanted to. The only problem with that, though, is that it takes time and energy. As pretty much the most important thing that Kurama said to Naruto in the activated Barion mode is that we're gonna burn through energy incredibly fast. Be very sparing with the moves and jutsu you use. In fact, the reason a lot of people believe that Barion mode Naruto didn't kill Ishiki is because he decides to use a Rasengan halfway through the battle. See, because any and all chakra that Naruto or Kurama expended on superfluous movements or jutsus, chakra they couldn't collide into each other to continue Barion mode. And thus, if what Himawari is currently manifesting is a derivative of Barion mode, taking the time to not only gather the chakra to fire off a tailed beast ball, but also to sit there and create it, would be kind of flying against everything we know about Barion mode. Once again, if we take the conversation back to efficiency and say that Himawari and Kurama's relationship is actually more like cold fusion than regular nuclear fusion, then that would imply that much in the same way that Naruto didn't necessarily have a time limit on his KCM2, that Himawari shouldn't have a time limit on her new Barion mode-esque mode. But why is this? What's the difference between nuclear fusion and cold fusion? Well, cold fusion doesn't technically exist, and it may never exist. It's a physics theory that theorizes that nuclear fusion in the right scenario could happen at room temperature. Now, this would be absolutely massive for humanity and energy creation as a whole. As nuclear fusion, the phenomenon that Barion mode was created to emulate, only happens in the center of suns. And while it is technically basically a hack for infinite energy, it does require temperatures close to 100 million degrees Celsius, and therefore really hard to pull off, especially for long continuous periods of time, which is why humanity has only ever been able to maintain nuclear fusion for about 40 seconds, and is why Kishimoto made the nuclear fusion reaction between Naruto and Kurama only last about a minute. However, since Kishimoto wants to write a sci-fi story and is apparently well enough versed on physics to make modes based off physical phenomena, if Himawari were to be a more efficient version of Naruto, there's a solid possibility that her new mode could be Barion mode, but with cold fusion, and thus that is to say, maintainable nuclear fusion. Kind of like if Might Guy was able to use 8 gates forever. That's kind of the scale of what we're talking about right now. And thus, if that was the case for Himawari, then taking time to create a tailed beast ball and using chakra to create a tailed beast ball wouldn't be something out of the scope of her possibility. However, just because of the sheer ridiculousness of giving a 12-year-old a permanent Barion mode, it's hard to consider that as the #1 possibility. I'd like to clear it up real quick here. I would love it if Himawari had an infinite Barion mode. My God, give it to me. But as it currently stands, I just don't deem it highly likely. No, because in actuality, I believe the revelations of this one page have made me realize that the reason that Daemon found Himawari so interesting, and the reason that Jura is now in battle against Himawari, is to display to us that Himawari is closer to the Shinju than we ever realized. See, here's the thing. Every single one of the Shinju wanted to consume the human being who was most important to the person who was bit by a claw grime that created them, with the only real question mark being why Jura was chasing after Naruto. However, that question mark doesn't necessarily have to be answered because we knew that Jura would never be able to get to Naruto. And thus Jura wanting to consume Naruto was just a narrative choice that allowed him to go to Konoha, try to find Naruto, and stumble upon Himawari, who is now his key interest. Because outside of Jura, all the other decisions made by the Shinju and the people they want to consume make sense. Bug wants Ada, Moegi wants Konohamaru, Hidari wants Sarada. That's fine. There's enough character development possibilities in those 3 matchups for everybody involved to grow. However, putting Himawari against Jura doesn't do anything for either of them from a plot perspective. Himawari never knew Jigen, and Jigen never knew Himawari, and thus them battling against each other doesn't really mean anything. Unless, of course, this battle is supposed to mean something different than the other 3. You see, because while Team 10 in collaboration with Konohamaru having to cut down Moegi Shinju has an emotional impact on all of them, and Hidari awakening to emotional sentience in his battle against Sarada and realizing he's trying to cut down his own daughter has plot repercussions for him, we don't have that same setup for Himawari and Jura. Which means the reason that they're battling is supposed to identify something else. And that something else, I believe, has already been provided to us if we use the context of who Jura is as a character. See, because think about it. Jura's identity is a relative mystery. We understand where all the other Shinju came from. However, how Jura came to be is still up in the air. And while I am 99.9% sure that Jura is just the Ten Tails given a piece of Jigen's will, Jura's path to self-identity has been a very clear and main talking point in Two Blue Vortex. And ironically, that's been one of the biggest key talking points revolving around Himawari since even before Two Blue Vortex. See, because prior to Two Blue Vortex, Himawari didn't know if she wanted to be a ninja or not. And then during the time skip, Himawari didn't know if she wanted to trust everybody else's opinion of Boruto or trust what her heart was telling her. And now Himawari, in a battle against Jura, has awoken to the reality that she's the next Kurama Jinchuriki. And on top of that, her powers don't manifest in the same way as Naruto's. And thus, rather purposely, the two people most confused on their self-identity in Two Blue Vortex are now locked in a death battle. But this isn't the only similarity between Himawari and Jura. See, because if Jura is actually the Ten Tails given ego by Jigen, we could make the argument that Himawari falls into a very similar camp. See, Himawari should have the DNA and chakra, both Hamura and Hagoromo, coursing through her veins. Tie that into the fact that she's the third generation of Kurama-born Jinchurikis, and there's a possibility that the unique genetic blend currently existing in Himawari has made her more similar to the Shinju than anybody's even begun to theorize. See, because think about it. Hamura plus Hagoromo is what? Kaguya. And Kaguya, whether or not you're buying the retcon information, at one point was indiscernible from the Ten Tails. And thus I believe that by Kurama combining his chakra with Himawari's unique compositional makeup that makes her genetically similar to both Kaguya and technically the Ten Tails, that there's a solid possibility that Himawari is currently manifesting a form more akin to the Shinju than KCM2. See, because the compositional makeup of a Shinju is using a human and a failed divine tree as the base of an entity. So basically all you need to create a Shinju is a human and Ten Tails chakra. However, rather interestingly, at least so far as current theories predict, Jura doesn't necessarily fall into that classification, as Jura is kind of the opposite, a Ten Tails and human chakra. And thus I believe the reason that Himawari isn't manifesting a chakra cloak or having Kurama's chakra leak out of her, and the reason that she's very visibly creating tailed beast balls like Jura creates tailed beast balls with his eye, with her hair, is because Himawari was able to achieve a form comparable to that of Jura by activating her Ten Tails chakra and DNA with a kickstart of Kurama's chakra. And thus she, like Jura, is a humanized, walking around Ten Tails with human ego. However, since the basis of her human ego is Himawari and not Jigen, she stands as a natural, good foil to Jura as a character, which is why they're currently locked in battle, battling against each other in a comparably similar means. Because here's the thing, that theory is a lot easier to explain and substantiate than the idea of Himawari having a continuous cold fusion-esque Barion mode. In order for the Barion mode theory to be correct, that means that Kurama and Naruto's chakra has to be inexorably mixed, and that all of the chakra that Naruto lost in the nuclear fusion reaction with Kurama stuck with Kurama and not Naruto. And thus his heightened new form of energy is actually what transferred over to Himawari after Kurama's supposed passing. And while this is definitely a possibility, and still a good one might I add, the idea that Daemon was interested in Himawari the second that Naruto was lost in Naruto makes sense when you consider the fact that Kurama's chakra beginning to manifest in Himawari could have kickstarted her ability to be a being comparable to Jura. That is to say, to be a Ten Tails. Though the only problem with this theory is that from this one panel, we do see that her hair forms into 9 tails, which could point us in the direction that instead of being the manifestation of a weakened Ten Tails like Jura, she could be a Jura-like being for Kurama and not the weakened Ten Tails. And since eventually the entirety of Kurama's chakra will end up with her, if it's not already there with her, I'd reckon, and I assume most people would agree, that the entirety of Kurama's chakra is probably equal to, if not more than, a weakened, emaciated Ten Tails that turned into Jura. And thus, the real title of this video should have been Himawari is a Shinju. But I'm curious to hear from you guys. Out of these 3 possibilities, which do you believe, now that we know that Himawari is able to use tailed beast balls, to be the most likely? Tell me in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. The beauty of today's video is that by the time that you see it, it could already be wrong.